We're with John Kelly. John is a personal injury attorney in Phoenix, Arizona. He's agreed to answer some online questions that were posted, and these are related to car accidents. So with that said, John, let me go ahead and ask the questions. This is from Jacob. Jacob asks, I was in the mall with my wife and 10-year-old daughter. We were going up the stairs and my daughter tripped over some building materials which were left on the stairs. She ended up with a sprained ankle and we went to the hospital. Normally this wouldn't be a serious issue, but my daughter is in gymnastics and she's extremely good. She's having to take months off to do rehabilitation. This situation seems to get worse and worse. What type of recourse is available? And in this case, how would compensation be calculated? And just as a note, I said car accidents, this is compensation levels.
Right. Well, this is an interesting case. A lot of legal issues come up in it. And one of the first ones that I noticed is that Jacob mentions that there's building materials that his daughter fell over. So the question is, was there construction going on at the mall that they were at? And because when you're looking at it from a personal injury perspective, we have to show that there was negligence. So were these building materials in an area that they shouldn't have been, that caused an unreasonably dangerous situation for his daughter? So I would want to get some documentation on that. Hopefully there was a report taken, maybe there was photographs that are available. The question is, who was facilitating these building materials being there? Was this the mall? Were they contracting out to another company? There could be different policies. If it was a construction company, they could have been, consulting with another company that we could look at too. So we have to establish that there was negligence there and who was negligent. So that's the big issue there. Then you look at her potential rehabilitation, and it sounds like it's because she's so good at gymnastics, there's going to be a lot of rehabilitation. So some significant medical expenses that we want to get her compensated for. So we want to look at what her hospital bills are, look at those records, speak with the doctors that are doing the rehabilitation for her. And then finally, she's going to have a lot of what we call pain and suffering. And pain and suffering includes things such as, I was great at gymnastics. I had this career going on, or a prospective career in the future, and everything got set back because of this. So those are things that can make the claim a larger claim. But this is a case that would take a lot of research, a lot of, possibly an investigator get involved, to go to the scene, figure out who's involved, and those kind of things. So I think Jacob definitely needs to talk to a personal injury attorney to get to work on that. And of note, if she's a minor, that can play into it, some issues in the future too that an injury attorney would need to advise him on.
Okay, excellent. This next question is actually very straightforward. This is from Denise. Denise asks, John, how do insurance companies calculate settlements? Okay,
insurance companies have a lot of different ways of calculating settlements, and it's changed throughout the years. It used to be a little more simple. You take the medical expenses that the client would have, and sometimes they would use things like a multiplier. It was ×3 or 2 or 5, depending on the seriousness of the injuries. And they would look at all the factors, but they would use those kind of things. Now a lot of insurance companies are getting a little more sophisticated. A lot of them have algorithms that they use. They're looking at prior case results, prior injuries that they've seen settle or maybe go to trial and have verdicts. So every case is so fact specific that it's hard to say how damages in each case are calculated, but in every insurance company is a little bit different. But one of the driving factors are, what are the medical expenses? Who are the doctors that have seen this individual? And you can understand that if the insurance company sees it's just a soft tissue injury, as opposed to an injury with broken bones with doctors involved instead of chiropractors involved with soft tissue, you know, that's a big difference. So there's going to be different results there. One of the ways that people can get an idea of what their, you know, what the insurance company might be thinking is to call up an injury attorney, because we deal with insurance companies every day. We deal with the results of injury cases every day. We have a pretty good idea of what cases are valued at depending on the injuries and how it occurred. And most attorneys will give a free consultation. So that's a good way to start. Ask all the questions you need to, and get on your way with recovery.
Okay, excellent. The next question was from Heather. Heather says, I'm 33, and when I was in college, which was 11 years ago, I was in a very bad car accident. Fortunately, I did not have any serious injuries. Around 4 years ago, I started experiencing neck and neck pains, and my doctor has concluded that it's from my wreck. Is it still possible that I can get compensation even though the injury occurred 9 years ago? And if so, how much could I get for a neck injury?
So for Heather's situation, the first question I would have for her is if she made a claim 9 years ago when the injury occurred, if she had a personal injury attorney, or if she settled out of by herself with the insurance company, because often the insurance companies will require a release that basically says, if we pay you any amount, you have to release us from further liability. So I want to know if there was anything like that occurred. If her injuries weren't significant at the time, she didn't really think anything was going on, then we have a statute of limitations issue. In Arizona generally, and there are exceptions, people have 2 years from the date of the accident. Or if there's a hidden injury, such as it sounds like maybe Heather's case is, then it becomes 2 years from the time the injury is uncovered or found out about. But there's going to need to be some pretty significantly good documentation about an injury that occurred, an accident that occurred 9 years ago, and the injury is now just manifesting. You would hope she would have some medical records from the time of the injury, maybe some doctor's opinions that could, I guess, back up her assertion that this just now is occurring. I think it's going to be a difficult case for Heather. It's definitely something that has a possibility of getting compensation, but it wouldn't be easy. So she would definitely need to have an attorney working on that case and looking at it very closely. The other note is if it did happen and the lawsuit was going to be brought against the city or the county or the state of Arizona, there is some even more stringent requirements. There's 180 days after the accident that you have to give notice to the city, state, or county, and then the lawsuit has to be brought within a year. So she's looking at a lot of complications here to be able to make this claim. But I would encourage her to at least speak with an attorney about more of the specifics to find out if that's possible.
Okay, excellent. And the final question we had was from Alex. Alex asks, or says, is compensation for car accidents handled differently for children? My son was with a friend and they were rear-ended by a pickup and he was hospitalized for almost a week. I'm looking to hire a local attorney, but I wanted to know what I can expect in advance.
Yeah, actually for children, accidents are considered, well, there are a lot of differences for children. One of the biggest differences is that the statute of limitations, which I was just speaking about in Arizona, is 2 years typically. But one of those exceptions is for children, minors, people that are under 18 years old. The statute actually tolls. And what that means is that the statute of limitations typically will not start to run until the minor turns 18. And this is a protection for children because we know that you know, they're more susceptible to not understanding the significance of their injuries. Often their injuries aren't as apparent right away, and they may not be able to articulate what those are. So the state of Arizona allows them to bring a claim much longer after the injury. The other thing that is different is if there is eventually a settlement that is agreed to with the insurance company. There's going to need to be court approval of the settlement if it's over $10,000, which means there's a lot of procedural things that go into this, but basically the court has to look at the case and decide that they think that it's a fair result given all the circumstances, and they have to approve that settlement. The final thing is that the funds actually have to go into a restricted account. They can't go directly to the child. A lot of parents think that they can get their child's injury case funds from the settlement right away. They can't. It has to go into a restricted account until the child turns 18. After they turn 18, we go back to the court and request that those funds be removed. It is an interest-bearing account, and there are some kind of structured settlements that can be done in certain cases, but definitely some unique things that go on with a child. And so, again, as I seem to always say, it's a good idea to speak with an attorney in a situation like this. And you know, especially in a child situation where you want to make sure that they're taken care of in the future.
Okay, excellent. Well, if you have,
I think that's the final question. If anyone has questions for me in the future regarding any of the questions I answered today or other questions, please feel free to call me. The law firm is the Kelly Law Team, and you can reach me at 602-283-4122. Thanks, Ryan.